so I'm going to be arguing on how Abigail McPherson's speech on how genetically modified seeds have a negative effect on farmers. My opinion is that genetically modified seeds do not have a negative effect on farmers, and I'll be sharing with you why. Abigail's first claim was that genetically modified seeds are protected by patent and intellectual rights law. This was an ambiguous statement, but she inferred that farmers cannot save seeds to replant the following season, and therefore it hurts the farmers. This is a fallacy in the fact that farmers know the regulations when they buy genetically modified seeds. Therefore, to fulfill their contract on the genetically modified seed corporations, they know they are not allowed to replant the seeds, and they are willingly accepting the situation when they choose to buy seeds. So, and her second assumption was that large corporations that manufacture seeds put small farms out of businesses through expensive litigation. She cited no cases on this actually happening, and there hasn't been a history of this happening either. The third point was that operators of seed cleaning companies have lost their ability to work. And she said that Monsanto's policy, Monsanto is a genetically modified seed corporation, that their policy includes 75 people that oversee the operators of seed cleaning, but 75 people are not enough to oversee a company that owns 18% of the seed market in the entire U.S. Her secondary claim was that genetically modified seeds cross-pollinate with plants on neighboring farms, and that she pointed out that organic farmers cannot sell their crops when they are cross-pollinated by genetically modified crops. But genetically modified plants, before they are sold into market, are regulated by the USDA, which controls the genetically modified seeds' effect on the environment, and that they have to pass a test to be allowed into the farming market. So these genetically modified seeds are regulated, and she gave no proof on how the cross-pollination has a heavy effect on genetically modified plants. But she also claimed that farmers are subject to legal action if their crops are cross-pollinated, but she did not cite any evidence on the cross-pollination that occur, and this does not give an accurate example of how many plants are cross-pollinated and how many farmers are actually getting into this situation, and thus invalidates the argument. Her third point in her secondary claim was that the use of genetically modified seeds creates superweeds. According to Steve Connor, the science editor of Independent UK, he says that genetically modified crops are unlikely to produce superweeds based on a long-term investigation of genetically modified crops. The third claim was that genetically modified seeds decrease the biodiversity of crops. Her first point was that public seeds become obsolete, but there's no proof that people are buying less public seeds, and therefore no evidence is cited, and it's only an assumption. Another argument was that ancient strains of rice and other crops are at risk, but knowing that seeds last a while after they are planted, the genetically modified crops are actually not harming the public seeds, but are replacing them. But this ancient seed can be saved for a while, and therefore they are not being destroyed either. The last point was that the combination of patent rights and decreased seed diversity create a monopoly over crops. But she claimed, but the companies that own the genetically modified seed market, the companies that own the genetically modified seed market are they only own a monopoly of the seed market, and they do not relate to the farmers. The patent rights over genetically modified seeds do not relate to how seeds can have harm on the farmers. Instead, they help them through creating more resistant crops. And that's why genetically modified seeds do not have a harm on farmers, but rather the seed industry.
All right, well, you identify the subject. It sounds like you're going to make counterclaims on most of those points, and that's okay. You say it's a fallacy on the first point, but you need some data on that point that the farmers can choose not to do this, especially if there's, the monopoly that the advocate's talking about. What choices do they have? Well, if you could show any kinds of choices, I think that would be sufficient to raise doubt about their point, but you basically just assert that point, and so I think there's a problem there. You challenge the lack of evidence on lawsuits. I thought that's a reasonable press on that. Your whole issue about the Monsanto company and the number of people that they have supervising this, that doesn't really seem to help you very much. I'm not sure where you're going with that criticism, and in the long run, without consequence to that, it doesn't really make much sense. Your argument about cross-pollination, your response is that the USDA regulates those kinds of foods, but that seems to me like it's after the food's been produced, and whether or not it can be designated organic, it doesn't really seem to address the issue that the advocate was talking about, that the cross-pollination would take place. I'm not sure, even if you're correct, how that denies or diminishes the point that the advocate was making, so I think that's a little bit of a problem. You do have a direct counterclaim on the superweed, so I thought that you had a piece of evidence that applied there. That was pretty effective. On the third point, it just seemed a little bit thin. You've got this explanation about how the other seeds that are supposedly being replaced by the genetically modified ones actually can last for a while, but it's not clear what it is you're saying. It'll be okay because after the collapse we'll still have these things someplace, and then we'll be able to restore. I'm not sure what the argument is there, and so there's a little bit of a problem with clarity. And at the very end, it seemed like you had kind of a circular argument, so you need to kind of think about what's the context of the argument, not just try and find something to say on these points, but how does that affect the validity of the comparison that's being made. I think that's what's missing in a lot of the supporting points that you have. All right, thank you.